a lot of trucking cases, primarily trucking cases at this point, with all of the truck wrecks that are taking place in the Permian Basin. That's one of the reasons I took this case on, too, is to try and make a difference in the safety in those communities.
Kent Buckingham is a lawyer for Nautica Carrasco, one of the 4 people that died in a crash 3 weeks ago. Nautica's brothers, twins Jaden and Jackie, were also killed. The 3 were students and athletes at Buena Vista ISD.
They were exceptional in every aspect. If you were going to design a son and a daughter for God to provide to you, these kids would be a good blueprint. They were outstanding athletes. They were great in school in their grades. They were kind kids. And it's a terrible loss.
A recent crash report shows that an employee of Southern Power, Gary Lyles, was driving on the wrong side of the road at the time of the crash.
I mean, he was clearly, based upon our accident reconstruction that we did from the site, he was clearly on the wrong side of the road and driving in the oncoming lane. There was nothing that these kids could do. It was just a horrible, horrible event. And it continued that way throughout the course of the wreck, with them not being able to escape that vehicle.
As the investigation into the crash continues, lawyers are doing investigations of their own.
Because I've developed a specialized team for wrecks exactly like this, and 18-wheeler wrecks. We have a team and an accident investigator basically on hold, waiting for a call from me, because we can respond very quickly to an accident site. And one of the things that I've learned as I've developed this type of practice is anytime you've got a wreck like this, it is imperative to get accident investigators on the site as soon as you can. There are witness marks that are created by the crash vehicles, gouges in the road, skid marks, dings on the side of the curb, that kind of thing. And these accident investigators are trained. They have a very keen eye for developing exactly what happened in a wreck scenario based upon the examination of those witness marks. Those disappear with time. They disappear with weather. They disappear with traffic. So on some of these oil field roads that are heavily trafficked, you've got to get out there very, very fast in order to really get accurate measurements and determine what happened.
Once investigators review what happened, then lawyers are able to go to work, filing lawsuits where needed.
These companies have a responsibility not only to their shareholders, but also to the communities at large that they're driving through, to make sure that these fellows and ladies that are driving these vehicles are properly trained, particularly in areas of safety, such as the no cell phone use and that kind of thing. But there's such a demand that there are shortcuts being taken by some of the companies. I'm not saying all of them. Some of the oil field companies, I don't want to name names, but some of them are just doing a great job, really, of educating their drivers before they put them out on the road. But some of them aren't. And the ones that aren't, the bad eggs, are the ones that are highly responsible for the majority of the wrecks that are occurring.
After records are received, depositions begin, and investigators interview survivors.
At that point, once the lawsuit is answered by the defendants, that begins what's called discovery period. And there's paper discovery interrogatories, which is questions that are exchanged between the parties. There's requests for production, which are critical, where they have to produce to us all the documentation that I referenced in that spoliation letter.
But what are lawyers hoping to get out of the suit?
I've done this a long time. My wife wonders, why aren't we retired and enjoying ourselves, traveling or something? I take great pride in what I believe my legacy to be, and that is the cases that I have handled and will handle, including this one particularly, will affect change in the corporate safety culture in the oil field. I actually want that on my tombstone.
Now, while investigating this tragic case, Buckingham wants to bring light to some of the issues that are seen daily on West Texas roads.
There are good companies and great drivers that are out there, safe drivers. But because of the money that can be made in the oil patch, there are a lot of companies that are taking shortcuts with safety. And when they take shortcuts with safety, they're endangering your family and mine.
Buckingham says oil-field companies should ensure safety in all aspects.
We're all out there. All our families are on these roads. And West Texas and Southeast New Mexico have some of the highest wreck and death fatalities in the nation because of the oil field production that's going on. So, I mean, it's a wonderful thing for the community that we have the work and the employment and the taxation that's on that oil and everything, but it comes at a high cost of safety. And a lot of times these companies aren't taking the steps that they should be taking.
One thing Buckingham is sure, after this crash or any deadly crash, families will never be the same.
But the one thing I tell these families is that they will get every ounce of my being to get justice for their kids. And in this particular case, they will get that.